There's a question in the chat box, Gary, about whether there was a control with no cover.
No, we had no cover with this farm. I mean, his main thing was, and that's and some of the farms are like that, especially the people that have used cover crops. They're seeing some benefit, but I guess the control is having, the terminating early. He's going to use cover crops, but then if he does, he's going to terminate it early, and which he has, and then the one where he has the winter hardy cover crops in regard to that. But and I know that's the people that are using that. A lot of them were just saying you start out, and I know with start out something that's going to winter kill out. You don't have to worry about a lot of these issues.
I have a question about looking at the weed control you might be getting in that rye. Are you doing any weed comparisons to the winter kill versus the winter hardy mix? Just doing any weed counts in those strips?
Not a whole lot. Some I know with some other projects they are definitely doing that. Especially we're concerned with Palmer amaranth was a huge concern, and I know down in Kansas State they're doing a lot of research with that as well, looking at that. And I know some of our weed scientists are looking at that. Todd, you not got any insight into that? I know out your way you got kind of Palmer amaranth out your way. I know there's a lot of it out there, and but other weeds as well. It's the biggest one they found. It's really beneficial is mare's tail or horseweed, if you want to call it. But it's you can tell to the row where that is, and we've found that and shown that over time for sure. And it's also I think they found that it is slowing down. Both the number and the amount of biomass with Palmer amaranth. But I know Kansas State's done a lot of that research.
There's a couple other questions in the chat box, Gary. One is, what was the nitrogen management for the corn crops?
I think what they didn't do any anhydrous. I think it was just put on. A lot of us, just right with the planter. I think they had some dry, or not dry. I think it was liquid was put on right before planting, and like I said, he terminated like 2 weeks before planting. So no, there wasn't no worries about any carryover. Yeah, but I think it was like 180 pounds or whatever a recommendation was, maybe a couple 100 pounds. I'd have to go back exactly and look at that for sure.
Okay, another one, any allelopathy from the rye on any of the subsequent crops?
No. And I think a lot of that has to do with the termination at the time. I have had I think more of an issue is concerned about, I mean, I know Daryl did in our project here, but in some of the other projects, nitrogen tie-up is probably the biggest thing that if they wait a certain time or don't put any on nitrogen at planting or right before planting. The guy that does it on pretty much everything, we've done some smaller plots on his, and we did get some, wasn't consistent though, some where we side dressed some added nitrogen, some benefit, but it wasn't a consistent over time. So we're hoping to keep working on that and try to fine tune that, see where we will. But I know the people that are doing it successfully are putting a lot of nitrogen on at or very near planting, or maybe even side dressing some early on. So that doesn't seem to be hurting their yields any.
Okay, another one just come in. Any best practices to share for multi-year mutually beneficial projects between researchers and farmers?
Yeah, the biggest thing, um, well, I guess the biggest thing is getting a farmer um, that's kind of buys into the program, that's learning and wants to learn from it as well. And I think all these projects that were, I mean, there are a number of producers. Like I said, some of these, I think some guys have been doing projects for probably over 10 years. Some of the on-farm research network that they have, and they seem to have something going all the time. And it's it's just the nature of their being. They're interested in learning, and it's kind of, like I said, farmer driven on, and cooperating with them is I know in Daryl example, he's got progressive pharma, and he's got another project with the university that's looking at his wheat, because wheat's he's making it, trying to make money, with his wheat as well, and which can be a challenge nowadays. But he's looking at the systems as well, trying to look at as much research as you can. So having it farmer driven, and maybe and if you have some of the other organizations like SARE or NRCS or some different grant projects can help out a little bit. That's the big thing, is so it's not going to cost them a lot of money, or he can get some compensation for it. Those are the big things that help out a lot.
We got a couple more just came in, Gary. Was there any data on pounds of gain per year on those acres that were grazed?
Most of the I think on the cows probably have some in regard to probably not pound, maybe more just grazing days, I think. And I don't have that. I think Daryl has that. I know some of the other studies where they're more bigger trap kept track of it better. They had a better handle on that, but it was mainly from a lot of his cows grazing. So a lot of them had calved or spring calving cows. So, but I know some of the studies they do have going on where they do have gained very well with that oats mixture. Up to a couple pounds a day with yearling calves, or even 500 or 600 pound calves, and very well, but none from this project per se.
Okay, one more. Were there yield comparisons with shorter season corn beans versus full season varieties, and benefit of early cover crop establishment with the shorter season? And maybe what are the trade-offs?
Well, they're just kind of, we did some, with the, like I said, like the different, what's the right word? A different maturity classification. And a lot of that's just kind of, they're still working on that finding some benefits where it's not affecting the yield so much. And there's a lot of inconsistencies there as well. But I don't know and actually if they've only got maybe a couple studies going where it's going in maybe the second or third year. But they're definitely, if they're getting in the season, longer growth of the cover crops is beneficial. But the data is kind of inconclusive yet, and that's something I hope to. I think people want to get that established more and more. More they were, initially it was just looking at the actual. They weren't setting it up to plant their cover crops that way. They were just kind of looking at the varieties, but then they are now. They have a couple projects established, and just learning that now. But